Hi, I'm Patrice Carroll. I am the Director of PWS Services at Latham Centers in the United States.
And I'm Neil Gumley, a Director of the Orange Hive in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia.
The universal formula for a quality of life is meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and leisure of your choice. And we can't ignore the meaningful relationship part simply because the person has PWS. That need for connection and community and belonging is so important, and one might argue even more important because they have so many challenges of daily life, that connection is something that makes them feel whole and part of the need to live a quality of life, and they deserve it, and we owe it to them to help them get there.
Absolutely. And I think as time has evolved, our ideas of what looks like a relationship and relationships for people with disability in general is really important, and it's starting to evolve and change. And now it's the time to have these conversations about how can we improve the education of such areas.
I think whatever role we need to play. So it really depends on the person that you're working with. If they need to be more educated, then we need to educate them. If they need to learn more skills to be able to go out there and meet people and maintain relationships, then that's our responsibility to do that.
I think it's the most important responsibility, that we are able to help facilitate the relationships and friendships, and also be able to educate and help to maintain strong and healthy relationships, and it comes down to the primary caregivers, who are the main point of contact.
Yeah. And to educate their families about the need for this as well. Yeah, they definitely do, and I think it's regional. It depends on what the laws and restrictions are in your country or your state. But I think, again, it's up to us as caregivers to push the envelope, to make sure that the laws meet the needs of the people and they're not archaic. And if they need to be updated, then it's our job to push them to be updated.
And we're going through generational change.
Yeah.
Changes in mentalities and ideas of friendships, relationships and sexuality. And it's important that the people we support, that they have that opportunity to change with that and have their voices heard. And that comes down to making sure that we can start by making sure that people are educated in those areas. And now, 10 years ago, we might not have thought, no, we need to protect people with PWS. Now we're looking at, hang on, they do have a voice, they do have a right, so how can we educate them in that area?
I think the best thing you can do to protect your child is educate them and make sure that they have the skills that they need and have the information they need to make an informed choice when they get to that point in their life where they are going to want to start having relationships with people.
And start early.
Yeah.
Really start early. What we find when problems do arise is when we've protected our children to a point where we can no longer protect them and they may be moved into care situations. So we can start the education process and transition process early. We can start as teenagers going through either schools, mainstream schools or specialised schools, and we can talk about it and have these conversations. It might not, in some regards, it might not help in the end, but it might also help other people down the track.
Sure. I mean, I think that something, and this really goes for all children, but I think we need to teach the appropriate names for anatomy, stop nicknaming body parts. You want to be able to have your child be able to report if something happens in a way that everybody can understand and not your family nicknames for body parts. I think that it's really important to establish an open communication with your child. You want to make sure that if something happens, they feel very safe coming to you, and have other people in your family that are safe people for them to talk to if they need advice or if they need to talk about something that happened that they may feel uncomfortable talking to you about.
Absolutely. And again, I use that word education, but if they're not educated in
Yeah.
what's right and what's wrong, or what situations they're in, or what could go wrong, or what is good and what is bad, then they might not have the ability to actually communicate that something bad had happened.
Right.
So there's no harm in having those conversations about what we would with my children or other children that we're going through that age. So we need to be able to normalise it, and then they might be able to understand what's going on.
For sure, yeah. I think sometimes we label behaviors as inappropriate when really the behavior is communicating that something isn't right. So if you have somebody, if your child is being aggressive or skin picking or doing something that we label as inappropriate, hitting another person, what you want to find out is why. What does that behavior mean? Are they frustrated? Are they anxious? Are they in a situation where they're feeling really uncomfortable? Once you figure out the why, then you can kind of work on what coping skills are lacking. What do you need to teach for them to feel more comfortable in that situation so they don't get to the point where they have to show you how they're feeling. If they can learn how to tell you how they're feeling, they're less likely to have to show you how they're feeling.
Absolutely. And society's norms now, while they're changing, we tend to look at, okay, well, would you be engaging that behaviour in public? I wouldn't be. So we need to speak on that level and talk about what the behaviour is, why it might not be appropriate at that time. And again, we talk about talking about it, educating about it, and working through those issues.
That is such a good question, and it's something that is so needed. What we don't have is a really good social media safety curriculum, and we need it. And this is kind of a call to action, because if anyone has ideas, we want to hear them. There are a few things you can do. You can supervise, you can put parental controls on social media. I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is going through some sort of curriculum that teaches people how to recognize stranger danger online, how to recognize what is inappropriate content. When you feel uncomfortable watching something on social media, what can you do about it? But it is such a big need in this community, and we need it. So if anybody wants to join forces to come up with a curriculum for social media safety, we're here for it.
Absolutely. And another thing I like to think is, if we black ban it or we put it to one side and say it's bad, they're going to find a way of doing it behind your back. Yeah. Open, honest conversations so they can come to you and feel comfortable and safe using the media is a lot safer. You'd rather know what they're doing and it's bad than something behind closed doors. Yeah. So it's important to try and say, it's okay, we can use social media, but let's have a discussion about it. If we put a blanket ban on social media, like anyone, they'll find a way to do it. Yeah. And then that's when we have real issues, because then we can't see what's happening.
Yeah. Until we have some sort of curriculum, there are plenty of apps where you can track what your child's doing online. You can see every move they make. That seems a little extreme to me, but if you do have someone who's using social media who might be getting into some trouble, there are plenty of apps. You just Google it. There are plenty of apps where you can track what your child's doing online. It's so important to have a universal understanding that people with PWS deserve everything that we can give them to have the skills to be in a relationship, to have partners, to be able to be sexually active if they want to be. They deserve it. It's up to us to give them the tools they need to do that.
Don't be afraid to have the conversation and start it early and work through it. Again, if we hide it and say it's not going to happen and try and push it to one side, we risk isolating them and people going and finding ways of doing it, and then it becomes dangerous. Have open conversations with your family members, or if you're a caregiver, with the people you support.